Welcome back to AvidLaw Probate Tutorials. In this tutorial, we'll show you how to use AvidLaw Probate to initiate probate and appoint the personal representative. When you start AvidLaw Probate, you will be brought to this screen, which contains two panes. In the left pane, there are a series of folders. Each folder contains the documents that are needed at that stage in the probate process, from the initial filings, notices, inventory and appraisement and asset management, creditors' claims, distributing the estate, and finally closing the estate. Also included are proof of authority documents, small estate affidavits, real property interest termination affidavits, and other miscellaneous documents that you may need during the probate process. We will show you how to use AvidLaw Probate to draft documents at each of these stages in future tutorials. Included in many of the folders is an item that allows you to draft all of the documents for that specific stage. This item saves you significant drafting time, so we highly recommend using them when they are available. But if you just need to draft a specific document or two, you can draft them individually. In the right pane is a description of the selected item, which includes the usage and limitations of the item. To begin the first stage of the probate process, you'll open the Initiate Probate and Appoint Personal Representative folder and double-click on this item that drafts all the documents at this stage. Since we are starting a new probate matter, we will create a new answer file. An answer file simply saves all of your answers into one file. We'll click OK to get started. Note that during this and subsequent tutorials, we are using an annual license. So if you have a matter-based license, this process will be a little different. If you haven't already, watch our tutorial on purchasing and entering matter codes to see how this process works. On this screen, there are two panes as well. In the left pane is a map of all the question screens associated with this stage. This map may change depending on the answers given. Again, this map will be somewhat different for matter-based users. The right pane is where you will enter your answers to the questions. The first questions ask us about the venue basis, and court. We'll select that the decedent was domiciled in this county, and in a later tutorial, we'll show you how to do an ancillary probate. The next thing you need to do in Maricopa County is select the court location and whether an interpreter is needed. Here we have a link that allows you to go online and look at the applicable statute. These links are located on various question screens throughout the software. So if you have a question or want to look up something quickly, it is readily available here. Now that we have finished answering all of the questions on this screen, we'll click the Next button to move to the next question screen. You can also move to the next question screen by clicking on it in the map. Next, you'll enter in the decedent's information. For many questions, you'll simply type in your answer. This question here allows you to type in the date or select a date from a calendar. In most cases, you'll only use the calendar if the date is recent. Note that when entering in a date, you must enter in a 4-digit year. After we have entered the decedent's birth date and death date, the age at death question is automatically entered. We'll select that the decedent was married. The last question allows you to enter in a separate mailing address if needed. Again, once you're done, click the Next button. The next question asks if there is a valid will that is being submitted for probate. If you have a case that is intestate, then the only other question needed here is if the heirs will waive bond. However, we'll do a testate case. Here we have a list of possible titles for the will, but you can type in the title of the will if needed. Next is the date the will was executed. Then you'll add in any codicils and whether the will waives bond. If it does not waive bond, then it will ask if all the devisees will waive bond. If they will not waive bond, then it will help us deal with the issue of getting a bond. And if they will waive bond, then it will prepare waivers for them. We'll say it's a typical case in which the will waives bond. The next question screen asks us for information about the applicant. In most cases, the applicant will also serve as the personal representative, but if you have a case in which the applicant will not serve as the personal representative, then the software will help you through that process. It also allows for multiple applicants and/or personal representatives. In our case, we'll say the surviving spouse is the applicant and will also serve as the personal representative. When entering qualification to apply, make sure to select all the options that apply. Note that when I select that she is the surviving spouse, the software assumes that she has the same address as the decedent, which saves you data entry time. But if that is not the case, then you can modify the address. In a case where there are multiple applicants, simply click the Add Another button. This question screen requires more information about the applicant, specifically if the applicant is a certified fiduciary. In most cases, they are not, so you'll just answer the questions listed. Here we are asked if the applicant will serve as the personal representative. Then we'll need to answer some questions about priority. This question asks if there is anyone that would have had priority under the will but is deceased. This one asks if there is anyone with priority under the will renouncing the right to serve. If yes, then the software will set up the documents for renunciation. And the last one asks if there is anyone with priority other than under the will renouncing the right to serve. The next screen tells us which documents will be drafted. The first two documents are our checklists. These checklists help you make sure you don't forget a step in the process, but you don't have to use them. If you don't want to draft the checklist, simply unselect them. The rest of the documents are the required documents that you will need to file for this case. This question asks us who will sign the probate information form. In most cases, it will be signed by the applicant, but if the applicant is not available, then the attorney handling the case can sign it. Next, you'll need to enter information about the spouse, all children, and the devisees or heirs in an intestate case. Here we can select anyone that has previously been entered into the software. Again, this saves you data entry time. We'll also add an adult child. To do so, we'll click the Add Another button and fill in the information for the child. Here we'll select that he is a son and a devisee. Here we can select any address that has previously been entered. The next question is optional. It allows you to enter the date that the documents will be signed if you know the date. If you don't know when the documents will be signed, leave this question blank. Now we are done entering questions about this case and are ready to draft the documents. Here at the top it tells us that we have no unanswered questions. If there are unanswered questions, then this button with two arrows will appear and it will take you to the next unanswered question. Since we have answered all of the relevant questions, we'll click this button to draft the documents. Before it continues to draft the documents, it asks us if we want to save the answer file. Please be sure to save your answer files each time you are prompted to make sure you don't lose any information. The documents then continue to draft and are now ready to review and edit them if needed. As you can see, the attorney's information is displayed at the top of each pleading, and if you want, you can put your law firm's information into the left margin of each document. Also within each document is hidden text, which gives you the statutory basis for all of the provisions in the document. To view the hidden text, simply select the Show Hide button within Word. This is our first checklist, which explains what you will need to do at this stage in the probate process. Included here is the cost of the filing fee and the cost for a certified copy. Our second checklist is for the person who takes the documents to the courthouse to be filed. That concludes this tutorial. Please watch our next tutorial to see how to prepare and draft notices to interested parties and other waivers that are needed shortly after you file the initial probate documents.